Hi, my name is Faith Sheets, and today I'm going to be talking about addiction. So, addiction is a psychological and physical inability to stop consuming a chemical, a drug, doing an activity, or a substance, um, even though it may be very harmful psychologically and physically. Addictions can range from drugs, alcohol, and sex abuse to just being addicted to playing a video game or being on your phone and gambling. Some symptoms that you may see in other people or um, you may be feeling even are intense urges for the substance that you're addicted to block out any unwanted thoughts or feelings. Another is driving or doing risky activities under the influence, failing at trying to stop your addiction. Um, a lot of people try to stop and they just can't because the withdrawals that they're experiencing are just too intense that they just need their substance. Um, and that leads to failure in trying to stop. And then also neglect in your appearance, just a whole loss of interest in trying to look presentable and keeping up on hygiene and like grooming and clothing. Some main causes of addiction can be from your family or your past and how your parents acted. If they were addicted to anything, how they treated you, to even stress in your own life or your job or even lack there of a job. Just trying to fill the void that's in your life. So, with that, the movie that I chose to do is called 28 Days. It is about a woman named Gwen Cummings, who is played by Sandra Bullock. She is a New York writer, and she just loves to party and have fun. Um, and she doesn't realize that she is addicted to drugs and alcohol. She thinks that she can just stop whenever she wants, but she doesn't want to stop. So why would she try? Um, Basically, after a series of very unfortunate events in her life, including her mother's death and then ruining her sister's wedding, she ends up in rehab. Um, and there she is very reluctant to participate in anything that they are doing. But after a few days, she starts to warm up to the people and um, she starts to realize that she's not really living a life and she's kind of trapped in her addiction and she really wants to change her life around because she doesn't want to die so soon, because if she were to be out in the world right now with these like withdrawals that she's having, she would probably die. Um, so after the 28-day period that she's in rehab, she gets out and there are still obstacles that she has to face, but she is really determined to stay sober and just kind of make a new life for herself. So, like I said, the main psychological disorder that is illustrated in the movie 28 Days is substance abuse and addiction. This movie shows a lot of addiction, not all from Gwen, but some from the people in the rehab center. But Gwen's main ones are drugs and alcohol. I think that she displays abnormal behaviors throughout the whole entire movie, and the people around her do. The main one that I think that she demonstrates is dysfunction. She can't really function in general when she's on drugs and alcohol, and when she's in rehab and she doesn't have the drugs and alcohol that she's used to, she still can't function. So her life is very dysfunctional. Um, she also demonstrates danger in some places of the movie, but I think dysfunction is definitely her main um, D of the abnormal behaviors. Throughout the whole movie, there are many signs of addiction and mental illness. Before she goes to rehab, Gwen doesn't really have any mindfulness of anyone around her except for her boyfriend Jasper. And she isn't really concerned about anything else than having fun and partying and just living her life. But um, that leads to a lot of things that go wrong in her life. Um, she doesn't realize that she has a problem, which is a sign of addiction. She thinks that she can stop whenever she wants, and she can't. Um, in rehab, she obviously can't use the drugs and alcohol that she's used to, and so she has major withdrawals. The first night, she is just vomiting everywhere all night, and then the days after that, she is very lethargic and shaky and tremory. I think that this is a really good portrayal of the disorder and what it can do to a person's mind and body while they're using and after they stop. So there are many causal factors that led Gwen to her addiction disorder. To begin with, her father left her and her mother and her older sister at a young age. And then also her mother was an alcoholic, and she later ended up dying from drinking too much and being on drugs. And the girls found her, and basically they were just left with a family friend or relative. And Gwen's older sister kind of just didn't pay any attention to her really after that. In one part of the movie, her sister talks about how she remembers watching Gwen when she was so little, and the sister was with all her friends, and Gwen was just ahead of them all alone. And that made Gwen really lonely, and she just had a void in her life. She also later on in her life got in a relationship with a guy named Jasper, and in my opinion, he was just as addicted to drugs and alcohol as Gwen was. He just didn't get into the situations that Gwen did that led her to go to rehab. So in rehab, they did things like group talks in a circle and chanting and talking and singing and talking to the counselor and reading and writing in a journal. And I think that rehab is a very common treatment for people with this disorder. And in her case, it ended up successful, but in many other cases, people always aren't as successful, and they're going in and out of rehab all the time. Gwen's addiction had some major impacts on the people around her, specifically her sister. Her sister was really the only one who was leading a stable life in this movie. In one instance, her sister was having a wedding, and Gwen showed up very late and drunk and high, and she just kind of stumbled around the whole time. And then during the reception, she gave a very embarrassing toast that she doesn't even remember to her sister and her new husband. And then she ended up knocking over the wedding cake, and because of that, she thought she needed to get a new wedding cake, so she stole the limo and ended up crashing it into a house, and that is why she went into rehab. She completely ruined her sister's wedding, and I think that portrayal is very realistic because the sister just ends up kind of giving up on her, and she just stops trying because she's just tired of trying, and she doesn't know how to help her sister, and she just can't take care of her anymore and all of her issues. After watching this movie, um, I can't imagine living in addiction, just having no control whatsoever over your life and not being able to stop. It's hardly even a life when you're addicted to something because it basically controls you. Like you need it all the time. And I think that when you're in an addiction, you basically have the capability to ruin any stable relationships that you have in your life. Because, like I said about Gwen's sister, um, the people around you just get tired of trying to take care of you and they just don't know how to help you. Um, and so they just end up giving up. And then, in a lot of cases, that people get just really lonely and their addiction gets worse and worse and it never gets fixed, but they really have no control over their life at all. Um, so I really enjoyed this movie actually. It actually made me tear up at some points. It was pretty intense. I think that it had a really good and important message. I've never experienced anything close to Gwen's story at all, but I still think it is very realistic. Um, to me, Gwen's story is just an exaggerated version of many people's lives in society today. And so that's why I really liked this movie. I thought it was really realistic, and they did a really good job of portraying the disorder and the effects and symptoms of um, the disorder and how it can affect you and others around you. So that is basically my interpretation of the movie, and then kind of a summary and a few facts about the psychological disorder of addiction. I really enjoyed the movie. This project was pretty fun making a video, and I hope you like it. Thank you.